TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. What are the opportunities for the content industry to work with Web3 platforms right now? What's been the impact of recent crypto fraud scandals? And how are Web3 viewers benefiting as well as platforms and producers? I'm looking to find out on this week's TellyCast. My guest on this week's TellyCast is Phil McKenzie, Chief Content Officer at MyCo, the Web3 platform formerly known as MContent. Welcome to TellyCast, Phil.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
Tell us a bit about your background, your career to date, and how you came to become Chief Content Officer at MyCo.
Sure thing. Well, I started in the entertainment business anyway, nearly 10 years ago, when I joined Goldfinch as employee number 2, I think I was. So I joined Kirsty when I was on garden leave between 2 non-entertainment related jobs, where I used to work in sort of strategy and marketing for various companies. I ended up staying at Goldfinch instead of going off and taking the other job. Very proud of what we achieved in that business. We are achieving in that business to date, where I'm still involved. You know, Goldfinch is for those that don't know, one of the leading indie investment and production companies in the UK. Very focused on film, but also, a chunk of TV deals we've done and shows we've been involved in, and also a sort of handful of video games. And also part of that business, we've, invested money back into individuals or companies where we see something that we really like or get excited about or see an opportunity in the market that maybe doesn't exist. That's kind of how, I started to think about blockchain, Web3, probably a couple of years ago. Me and my wife were renovating a house, so I was listening to a lot of podcasts. And it was just at the time when everyone was starting to sort of think about NFTs and Web3 and the use cases. And, every day when I'd turn up to the house and start whatever sort of menial task I was doing, painting or shifting stuff or whatever it was, I just get more and more sort of sucked into what the opportunity was there and more sort of aligned on what was possible and how it could fix a lot of problems in the entertainment sector and also open up a lot of opportunity as well. And so I was thinking, how do we sort of take the fundamentals of Web3 and at least start to use them and trial them? And I started talking internally to people that we were working with within Goldfinch and businesses we were involved with. And one of those was Nick in First Flight's, Nick Sadler, who's our partner in that business. And that's an incubator for first-time filmmakers where we give some funding through the Short Film Fund and, hope to, see them create a great short film that will then be that first, rung on the ladder for them to go on to great things. And we thought maybe we can use Web3 technology to help them raise money using NFTs and tokens as a way of bringing in extra funds to help them on their way. And that led to us launching something called FF3. We were one of the first companies to successfully raise, using NFTs to fund a production called The Dead of Winter, which we're actually just in production on at the moment. And, I ended up being, sitting on a lot of panels and doing a lot of talks. In fact, one of them was yours. And in fact, the panel that I was speaking on at the TellyCast financing forum with you guys was where I met Umair, who was the founder of MyCo, previously known as MContent. And I'd heard about MContent before that. And I was very impressed by what the guys had built in a short space of time. One of the criticisms about Web3 sort of in joke is that, everybody, talks a great game and loves chatting, about their vision and all these amazing possibilities, but very few sort of get down to business and actually deliver. And what I was really blown away by was the fact that, Mayor and the team had launched their token, raised a chunk of cash doing that. They'd build a community, a big community off the back of that. And then they'd also, put those funds into serious projects, into proper film and TV projects and put them on a platform in probably 6 to 9 months. This was whilst a lot of other companies were just sort of, talking about it. So we kept in touch and we're talking about different ways of working together. And what that materialized into was me coming on board as the Chief Content Officer in a partnership agreement with Goldfinch to help on the production side and funding side where appropriate. And this was probably 6 months ago. We're now, in a really exciting place where we have just rebranded the platform, as you sort of indicated previously. We were called MContent, we're now called MyCo. We've completely redesigned, rebuilt the platform itself from the ground up. So the functionality, the UI, the UX is really industry leading. We've acquired and licensed a lot of content. We've got, the first initial originals coming through now as well and landing on the platform. And we're, now just looking to grow this throughout the rest of the year, bring in some fantastic partners, some investors, and we think sort of sky's the limit if we keep on this trajectory.
Okay, well that's good to know. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that you'd actually met at the
Yes.
TellyCast Content Funding Festival last year. So there we go. I should be popping in an invoice for that. Surely some sort of introduction fee.
I know. I'm going to look at the small print the next time we're involved in an event, but I'm sure there's going to be like an introductory, fee in there.
It was a really good day. And actually, you can go back, if anybody's interested, they can listen to that panel that Umair was on from the Content Funding Festival. So it's you can just find that easily in the back catalogue of TellyCast episodes. And it was interesting because I think back then we were talking about, what is blockchain and how can it help the production community. I remember the discussion. It was a lot of, what is blockchain? What is it? And I think, we're nearly a year later, and I think people's understanding has developed a little bit more. But I certainly think from being in Real Screen and being at recent industry events, the talk is all about alternative forms of financing becoming, super important this year, co-production being super important, but also the way that producers are going to get their shows funded is changing because we're in the middle of a recession. We know that a lot of cable companies are dropping their budgets. There's all this turbulence that's going on. So essentially, the alternative form of financing via a Web3 model seems even more timely now than perhaps it was back then. First of all, why did you change the name? What was that all about?
There was just a feeling that we needed it to be shorter, snappier, more memorable, just a better brand, really, to put on the platform and our content going forward. And MContent was kind of purely bubbled up out of very quick beginnings when Umair kind of quickly spun it up at the start, and we just felt like we needed something more representative and also more appealing to our community and the Gen Z audience we're going after. So we took the MContent idea and the whole idea around power to the viewer, them being involved and getting a share of the content and the ownership that goes with it. And so we took the idea of MContent to MyContent to MyCo, and that's a sort of quick story behind that.
So it's basically a more snappy consumer-facing brand,
Yeah.
essentially. Now you're going to start to go out and market this to consumers a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Coming back on to what you were saying there about this idea of audience having a share. For our audience that perhaps don't know anything about blockchain at all, and maybe haven't heard of MyCo or MContent, let's start at the beginning. What's the purpose of the MyCo Web3 platform?
So the whole purpose, the vision of it is for us to put power back in the hands of the audience and the viewer. So there's many platforms out there. There's a lot of, use cases in Web3 as well, where it's about putting that power into the hands of the creator, or actually just putting more hands into the power of the platform as the middleman. There's not really anything out there, we believe, that is about empowering the viewer and rewarding them justly for their involvement in the value chain. Now, more than ever, people are understanding the value of their data and their position within the digital economy. And as part of that, what we do and what underpins it all is this revenue split across everything we do, where 65% goes to the rights holder and 35% goes to the audience. So what that means in a little bit more detail is whatever revenue comes through the platform or comes through that piece of content, the 65-35 is the split that's made. And that split is then allocated in MContent tokens to the two parties. The tokens can be cashed out as normal currency, as pounds or dollars, or you can sit on them and build up a pile of MContent tokens and then use them, for other experiences and unlocking more content or potentially other retail opportunities that we're just building out and putting on the platform too. And a really good sort of proof of concept of this that we recently did just before Christmas was we took a live sporting event. We acquired the live streaming rights to the India-Bangladesh cricket series in December. And, of course, normally people would pay, up to $10 to watch this series in a sort of traditional pay-per-view manner. But in this case, we bagged, advertising revenue from, I believe it was 10 different brands and sponsors. We totaled that up and we allocated 35% of that revenue back to the viewers. So rather than these guys and girls all paying their $10, in fact, they were paid for the privilege of coming to MyCo and watching the cricket series with us. And I think that's the best sort of proof of concept that we can point to, which really shows us flipping the model on the head and doing something innovative and different and exciting that puts the power back in the hands of the viewer.
So essentially the problem you're trying to solve with MyCo then, is it about attracting viewers to content, or is it about changing the funding and advertising model? What do you see as being the problem with the current, whether it be linear or streaming system or AVOD that you're trying to solve?
It's that none of the platforms and providers out there of content are thinking about how do we reward the audience in their involvement in watching this piece of content. It's all about how can they, look after their stakeholders, the advertisers, the content creators. No one is actively thinking, how can I give something back to the audience and reward them and cut them into this transaction? We've seen the rise of play to earn in games, that's taken off over the last few years. And that's largely, due to the younger demographic, the Gen Z and millennials, really embracing this as well, not just as a game, but as an experience and as a format to engage with content as well. On the more content side as well, we've seen the rise of AVOD services. These guys are, have deep war chests as well that they're putting into original content. So I don't think it's going to be long until, the audience see a good quality of production that they would have previously seen on SVOD services they're paying for. The audience will see that actually I don't need to pay for this anymore. And I think it's a short step on from that to think actually, I can be rewarded for this and I should be getting a share of, more meaningful involvement and engagement in this content for watching it, akin to the play to earn model, out of the games industry. I think it's a mix of all those factors that, will point towards people being driven to services like ours and similar ones that are audience centric and thinking about how can we bring different experiences that they're not getting at the moment and different reward structures that the audience aren't getting at the moment. And as you kind of rightly pointed out, we're just in a recession with whatever data you look at, budgets are being cut, people are more mindful of the money they've got, but they still want just as good, if not better experiences. So, now is the time we feel that we should be, really being laser focused on, how can we do this in a different way and a better way for the viewer.
Is there any advertising? Does the viewer also sit through advertising during a show, or is it ad free?
Yeah,
how does that work?
So there's the usual kind of ad breaks in there, before and after, and intermittent stages throughout. It's a relatively standard sort of AVOD approach. We're also bringing in SVOD probably by the end of Q1, so March. From a user perspective, the interaction and how they're being served the ads and the subscription element will be relatively similar to what they get. But what will change is the reward structure and how they're being, rewarded for engaging with the content and watching the content in a more meaningful manner.
you're being rewarded not to skip the ads, essentially.
Yeah, so the quality of the viewer is so much higher with the platform, with MyCo, than it would be with many other sort of streaming options, because these people are being rewarded for watching every single second of what is happening there in front of them. They're not skipping, they're not just jumping to the bits they like. They're watching every second as it ticks on.
Blockchain and crypto has come in for a bit of stick recently, hasn't it? It's got a bit of a bad name through people like Sam Bankman-Fried and the founder of FTX, who's currently facing fraud charges in America. How does that affect what you're doing in terms of reputationally for crypto-based and blockchain-based businesses? Where do things go from here, do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that, unfortunately, we have to answer. From people within the industry, what SBF and FTX were doing was very different to what 90% of the use cases of Web3 and businesses that are building using it are actually doing. He is in essence, a bad actor. He was acting fraudulently and using tech to defraud people. There's an argument there if he could have used Web3, he could have used more traditional technology as well. There was an element of it was always going to happen, but just technology enabled him to do it. Now, what we shouldn't be doing is kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think a lot of people recognize that, or are starting to recognize that. A few bad actors that have embraced this and run with it and, taken advantage of people who were trying to jump on a bandwagon as sort of retail investors and those that kind of had FOMO and wanted to make, get rich quick off it. That shouldn't lead to us, discounting all these amazing use cases and businesses that are starting to pop up and really using the tech to create new experiences, create new opportunities, and ultimately, build real communities and decentralize a lot of the structures and systems that exist in society today, for the better, we feel. And personally to us, from a MyCo, yes, this is a question we always have to kind of battle and answer. But actually what we feel is that there was always going to come a stage where the sort of bubble popped and a lot of the hot air went out of what was, a very buoyant, frothy market in tech in general. And Web3 was maybe at the tip of that. And there was always going to be a case of things getting kind of, businesses that were playing right close to the edge were going to be swept away, leaving what we feel are the sort of proper, stable, long-term, good businesses for the future, such as MyCo, that hopefully investors can get behind, as well as, consumers and the rest. And I'd say we're starting to see a lot of the sort of mass adoption of the technology come through with big brands launching their campaigns using NFTs, the metaverse, etc. They're not going to all get it right, but they're starting to use it and play around with it and see how can they use it to better engage with their fans, their audiences and consumers. So we're pretty bullish. We're bullish that there's not as many companies around in the space. We're one of them that is a serious, long-term contender. And we're bullish that, there's going to be mass adoption using the technology across not just entertainment, but all elements and sectors of society as both companies and people get to grips with the potential of the technology.
The whole concept of decentralization is something that you don't want that. The whole idea and the benefits of decentralization to be tarred with the brush of a couple of fraudsters. So I understand that. So tell us about MyCo then, in terms of how robust you are as a business, because you're going out there, you're acquiring catalog, you're commissioning content. We'll talk about that in a second. But can you give everybody an idea of, how solid and robust MyCo is as a business?
Yeah, I mean, we've been going for just over 12 months and seen a huge amount of growth in that time. We're close to 1.5 million users, closing in on, 1,000 watch hours on the platform. We've got about 50 originals at various stages of production as well now. A lot of that has been, we've been able to do that, especially through the dip, through, the support of our, anchor investor as well, who's been, not just supportive from a cash point of view, but from a strategic and a resource point of view as well. We're generating revenues. And we, are generating, a lot of interest, on the investor side as well, which is, one of our aims in the first half of this year is launching and closing our Series A funding round, which we're excited about too. So, we're also talking a lot of strategic partners, a lot of bigger companies in terms of, traditional TV companies and, mini studios, distributor sales, pretty much from every sector of the entertainment business, who are interested about how can they work with us and use us as a way of understanding Web3 better, how can they understand this new distribution avenue better, and start to, work with us in some way, shape or form. Some of that can be quite transactional and some more kind of far-reaching and strategic in some cases. As far as where we're positioned, we're perfectly placed, as a platform, but also as a production company, financier, to, just help navigate this new world of distribution and Web3, and trying to harness it in those ways to finance, to produce, to distribute content in a new and more exciting manner. A lot of the opportunities coming to us are us just trying to work out how can we use the tech alongside traditional ways to create better experiences and rewards for our audience.
Let's talk about commissioning for a second and the original content you're commissioning. Can you give us a flavour of this? Because what I've seen in the news in the past year or so with MContent, when it was MContent, was that a lot of the original commissioned shows were documentaries actually around blockchain and, the whole crypto sector. Is that purely because a lot of your early audience are just that, early adopters, and they're going to find that sort of, watching blockchain documentaries on a Web3 platform makes complete sense to them, and they're already sort of converted, if you like, into this way of experiencing content. Is that still the case now, or are you looking to branch out? You mentioned the cricket rights that you acquired. Give us an idea of what you're looking for and what original content you've commissioned to date.
To date, I think we've definitely sort of lent into that Web3 community that we've got. The Blockchain Live series, which you mentioned, Web3 Wonderland, which we did with Villain Studios, or we're doing, currently with Villain Studios. But I think our ambition and our pipeline actually is far broader than that. The best way we can describe it is just say, the best focus for us is around Gen Z and what they want and what they're consuming, which is obviously ever evolving. Whether that's documentaries, yes, Web3 great, but also true crime that we're looking at, anything that's kind of cultural, biopic based as well. But again, it's got to be Gen Z orientated. It's got to be stuff that they engage with, that they actually know that happened and remembered and they feel is relevant to them today. On the format side, there's some lifestyle fact end stuff we're doing and developing, particularly with older stuff maybe that we're pulling into a more kind of techie format now, or sort of futuristic lean to it. One of those that we announced was the Dating in the Metaverse that we announced very recently, which is a dating show built around in a metaverse, obviously. And on the scripted side, we're sort of taking it a bit slower, and clearly budgets far greater on that side. So we are trying to go after maybe more genre, high concept, whether that's thrillers, more sci-fi or horror related stuff that we can shoot for lower, more sensible budgets and be less reliant on cast. And then also looking at as you said, sports rights. Podcasts for us, is an area we're excited about too. Short form content, the format doesn't really matter for us. It doesn't matter whether it's 5-minute clips or, multi-episode series or, feature film or whatever. It can be any shape or size, as long as we feel that it's got that steer towards Gen Z and it's something exciting and interesting for them. So across all of that, we've got, as I sort of said earlier, we've got a slate and a pipeline of stuff we're either acquiring or licensing or commissioning or even producing in-house with the team we've put together, across all those sort of areas and genres. We're very busy on the content side.
And are you transacting with producers and distributors in terms of acquiring and commissioning content in a traditional way when it's, sort of pounds and dollars? Or are you looking for your partners to look at this as an investment when it comes to earning tokens? How should, potential partners be thinking about how they can work with you?
What we always say is what we're in the market to act like a traditional content company. We're there to acquire and license like any other buyer would, any other network would or platform would, to commission this similarly and to produce. The deals that we're doing are, we'll pay a license fee, an acquisition fee, and that will be in fiat. It will be in pounds and dollars or euros. We can always then give a revenue share and a profit split, using the tokens, which, depending on whoever the producer is or rights holder is, we can work out the sort of nuances of the deal, whether they keep the tokens or we convert them for them. So we're there to act as a traditional content company, as I said. The tokens and all that, clever stuff is almost like the sort of cherry on top, an added bit we can give extra. So yeah, we're there to act as a traditional, content company.
All right. And how about your viewers, stroke subscribers, stroke audience out there? First of all, how do you access MyCo? How can our listeners to TellyCast go and have a look and discover MyCo? What's the easiest way for them to do that?
You can download it from the App Store. You can go to the website as well, which is myco.io. And yeah, super simple to sign up and start watching and earning the tokens. For every second that you're consuming content, you'll be earning tokens.
And where geographically are the most of MyCo's viewers right now? Because the company's based in the Middle East, isn't it?
Yeah, company is based in Dubai. We have, a good chunk of our subscribers and audience in the Middle East, in sort of MENA, in South Asia as well. But we also have a surprising amount in America and Canada and also, Europe too. So it's relatively global, the audience, with a slight lean into the region, as it described, but also North America, which is surprising for us, but kind of, we're running with it. And, we've just come back from the US from a couple of weeks there doing meetings because we feel like actually that, going off the data, there's an appetite for what we're doing there. And we should be working out how to pull in more partners over the pond and maybe accelerate that growth path over there. So, and that kind of feeds into the content that's part of our pipeline. It's a mix of, yes, regional stuff, but also international stuff as well, which is a tricky balance to tread, fully recognize that. I think we're getting it right at the moment. That's the job of a modern platform, I think, is to try and work out, how to tread that line.
And what's next then, Phil? What's next for MyCo in the first quarter or so of 2023? What are your main priorities? What do you want to achieve with MyCo in the next few months?
Our priority is on the content side. We've got a whole slew of podcasts we're launching. We're we're in talks to acquire another handful of sporting events, which we'll go live with. We will have some more, announcements on some scripted projects we've been putting together. We announced the FTX doc that we're doing with Decrypt as well, which is, something we're really passionate about in telling that story. Keep your eyes peeled and on the platform because, we've got a sort of very aggressive release campaign around, the number of new projects we want to be announcing and marketing and launching on the platform, every week. So that's our job, is to make sure there's enough exciting content on there and new content and exclusive content that draws people in. Separate to this is, we're, as I mentioned, in the sort of early stages of launching our Series A funding round, which we're very bullish about completing given, the reception we've had so far within the next few months. Just continuing to build the business and keeping the growth trajectory where it is, which is, in a really exciting place, and building the team out further on the ground in Dubai and in some other locations as well very, very quickly.
And now it's time in the show for Story of the Week, where my guests get to nominate the news story that's caught their eye in the past 7 days. Phil, what's your Story of the Week?
A story doing the rounds about Andrea Riseborough, the British actress in a film called To Leslie. And there's a lot of kind of furore going on about the way in which, people have been marketing the film to the, around the Oscars and the support it's being given. It just made me think in general. I know this is sort of more film than TV, but it's applicable across both areas. And it's made me think, what is the relevance of these awards now? And how much money is spent on them, not just to televise them and the sort of production around it, but the marketing campaigns that go around each of the projects and the talent involved in order to win them. Is that money, is that time and effort not better spent on more productive things, on more meaningful things within the industry, especially with budgets being tightened and us, facing a tricky year ahead? And sort of second to that, also thinking, Gen Z, the younger generation coming through, which MyCo is focused on serving. The films that are in these awards, the TV shows that are in there, or any of them representative of this younger, demographic coming through? And in general, are they representative of just the general audience out there? And I think in a lot of cases that they're probably not. So whilst quite a niche story, maybe, I think it sort of symbolizes a bigger problem that we have. And yes, everyone loves to get an award and praise and a pat on the back, but maybe we just need to rethink them going forward and the importance that we hold on them or we place on them.
You mentioned earlier on the show you've been to LA recently. I'm imagining that all you've been able to see, all the billboards, are for your consideration billboards, which are focused on a handful of people in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood to get their votes. But these studios, Netflix as well as, a lot of the traditional studios, are spending millions to get their shows nominated and obviously ultimately winning these awards. It is extraordinary. I've whenever I've been into LA and seen that, it's like, well, isn't there a better way of doing that? Is there a more targeted way of influencing people? But there we are. That's
and a wider pool of people voting on them and contributing. The Academy and all the other awards as well. Is still a very elite group of industry insiders who make the calls and still grappling with issues of representation and equality and all the things that are a lot of other sectors have kind of got on top of or have been working through, and it seems that we haven't still. So yeah, that's my story.
Interesting. No, it's interesting. Well, Ricky Gervais's tirade at the Golden Globes a few years ago still lives quite fresh in the mind, doesn't it? When we're talking about the whole Oscars and award-winning circuit. And now it's time for another one of our regular slots, where my guests get to shout out their hero of the week and nominate who or what they're telling to get in the bin. So, Phil, first of all, who's your hero of the week?
It's the Succession trailer dropping, which I'm sure a lot of people were very excited about. Yeah, I just think, does it get any better than this? It's just, the most incredible TV show that, I've literally been counting down the days for. So, yeah, that's my hero.
26th of March, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah.
I think it's 26th of March.
Too far away. It's too far away in my book.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. All right. Well, we're all looking forward to the next installment in the life of Logan Roy and his kids. So Succession is your hero of the week. And what about in the bin? What or who are you telling to get in the bin?
Yeah, I know Succession is probably a bit of a sort of flippant one, but the my in the bin, I actually had two, one of which we spoke about, which was FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, which is, he firmly deserves to go in the bin for tarring, an entire industry and, ruining people's savings. But the second sort of serious one I had for this was, and I've thought this for a while and spoken about it on various panels and things, but it's really come into focus the last sort of month or so when we've been out there, starting to fundraise for MyCo for the Series A. And it's this idea that in the UK, I just don't think we've got it right still with, the investment structures and the investment environment for entertainment companies. When we're thinking, where do we raise money from? We talk about the US, we talk about the Middle East, maybe pockets in Asia. No one really talks about the UK. And I think, the government, should be doing something about this. We had, SEIS, EIS structures, they got altered and are, very tricky and very bureaucratic to use. And I feel we've got an opportunity, in a weird way with budgets being cut, people spinning out of bigger companies. We've got such a great talent pool in the UK, world renowned and respected, but when these people are spinning out of these bigger companies and looking to do their own thing, are they getting the support and the funding, more importantly, that they need? And I think in a lot of cases, having been at the sharp end of that, I'd say no, they're not. I don't know whether it goes in the bin, but it needs addressing. And I think it needs to be, addressed as a priority in order to make sure that, we're not just servicing other productions and US productions here, but we're actually, continuing to build a fantastic domestic industry that has, long-term value for the people that are actually involved in it.
Well, I think everybody could agree with that. Certainly our listeners in the UK will agree with that, I'm sure. Phil, thank you so much for coming on TellyCast. Really interesting hearing about MyCo and your plans and how things are going. If you're going to be doing any more cricket events, any rights, well, I'm a big cricket fan, so I'll be hoping for an invitation to Lords or something in the post.
Hopefully, it's one of the Lords tests for sure, and we can get you on commentating. Maybe just
love to. Yeah. I'm always available.
In exchange for the introduction between me and Mary, you can.
There we are. Yeah, we could call that quits.
Exactly.
All right. Good luck with everything, and we'll hopefully see you at the next TellyCast Content Funding Festival, which is happening in May. So we'll see you very soon, and good luck.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. Next week, I'm meeting with one of the UK's most successful content creators with over 8 million followers across social platforms, the 23-year-old viral superstar, Brandon B. This week's show was recorded in London and edited by Ian Chambers. Until next week, stay safe.